Yeah, hello and welcome to my tutorial series on what are good strategies in Polytopia and what are good ways against players or against bots. To showcase this, I would just pick a random tribe. I don't know. I will disable the special tribes, and I would also say that, for example, I don't expect everybody to have other tribes, so I will just pick one of the four random starting tribes that everybody has. And I will be playing on a medium sized map with 5 opponents, so in total 6 players on 310-24 map. It's pretty okay. Okay, I got Omaji. Omaji is a pretty good tribe to showcase the Rider Roads strategy. Yeah, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to skip this rune so it would be more consistent with everybody else. And I will firstly upgrade my city. The idea of Rider Roads is that you use riders and roads to defeat your opponent quickly and overrun them. It's pretty often used in multiplayer. Here right now I got pretty unlucky and couldn't see this coming, but the idea like here right now is I'm just going to spam out roads and riders to just defeat my opponent quickly. For example, I could place 2 roads here and just road to the next village. Bardo captured a city near my border. Therefore, I'm going to try to capture it too. And here, for example, there's a possibility of taking Bardo's capital, and I'll go for it. And yeah, unfortunately there was no unit, because if there would have been a unit I could have killed it. But it isn't that big of a deal, and I will just go on. The idea of Rider Roads is that you just use your riders to destroy the units of the opponent quickly, and then escape with the units that didn't make it and just regroup and attack somewhere else later. For example, here right now, the units that have been damaged were just sent back to my territory, and then later I will just use them to attack again. For example, after you have finished with Rider Roads, you can go on and use other strategies. For example, here I have conquered Bardo, therefore I could just go hunting and then into forestry, or I will just go on and take a more that's one economic approach. The other one would be that I go sailing and then sail out to the seas. There are many different possibilities, and it always depends on the stage of the game. For example, here I'm going to take the capital of Bardo, and then I'm going to siege the city by just massing lots of riders and just attacking the capital. Here I'm going to take this ruin. It gave me resources, and the idea of Rider Road basically is that you build up a strong network of roads and then just overwhelm your opponents with it. Now, for example, here I've destroyed Bardo, and that's a good way of showing it. For example, I could have shown another way of it would be to, for example, on a normal map but dryland for better so I could better show it. Once again, for example, here we have Chinchi near our border, but I would like to go here. Here is Vengir. Vengir is a pretty bad tribe to play against. if you are playing with this strategy. And unfortunately, we didn't got a city right from the start, but we've got a ruin. Here is our first enemy that we are going to be fighting against. For example, here you can see I don't have good resources, but I can still use this strategy because it's pretty versatile. You just take your basic 1 or 2 villages first, and then you just attack all of the others. Here I put my rider in front, and if you're asking yourself why, there is a possibility that there is an archer on this tile, and then the warrior could just go here and the archer behind him, and then the archer would have attacked. But now I have made it so it isn't possible. There were 2 warriors, but it's okay. And now I'm just going to make more roads and just firstly riders and then roads. I train a warrior here because with a street I could still bring him up to this village. That's what I meant before. And if I use my roads correctly, I can unsiege the city, for example. And then I will use a warrior here, for example. As you can see here, I used the riders and roads to first, for example, defend my territory. And after I've seen a few people, I can just, for example, use an explorer to get better information about my opponent. Because the problem with riders is that they aren't as quick as they think if there are obstacles or if they can't see the target, for example. Furthermore, you take resources and things like that to further build up your economic foundation, and then you just start to use your riders to destroy as many units as possible. Here I'm going to start nearly like storming the capital of Hudrig. For example, here they have only 1 archer and I have a ton of units against them. And the problem is that they have a city wall, but it isn't like, you can handle this by just attacking them more and more, and they will eventually have no chance of resisting you. Like you can see here, my riders and roads, because my riders can move so quickly, they have the possibility of destroying your opponents pretty quickly too. For example, here I can just ignore the warrior and just go around it and use my riders to just advance and kill all of the units. Here I check if the 10 HP warrior can kill my 7 HP warrior, which isn't the case. Therefore, I just, for example, attack him to get a kill more here, and then just spam more riders. That's the basic idea of the strategy, is to use your roads and riders to get more flexibility. And so, for example, here you can also snipe cities pretty well with your riders. If you see, for example, a vulnerable city, you can just take it and or siege it at least, and limit the stars that the opponent can get. Sometimes it's also pretty reasonable to heal up your units. It's not always about just attacking. Sometimes healing up is important too. And here, unfortunately, the city got unsieged, but because we have such a good road network, you could still use your riders to advance into the territory of your opponent. And here, for example, I can capture the city then. But as you can see here, I'm not as fast as if I would have had a lot of vision. Therefore, if I go, for example, on this mountain, I can go on more tiles in the future. And then you just play normally. Also, you play just normally after that. Just as a showcase, for example, that I've taken the city, and now I have a pretty good base of continuing the game. Another possibility would be to, for example, use archers. For this, tribe like Bardur is advised. I will just again disable all of the other tribes so I could showcase it better. But for example, you take Bardur or something and play on a pretty crowded map. Then you can go either for catapults or for archers. Here I will show how to go for archers. The idea is that you first develop normally, but after that you go for archers. I skipped a few turns because I could upgrade my capital to a level 3 capital, and I could just take resources and upgrade this as well. For archer, if you want that your archer strategy works, then you have to see your opponent. And here we have, for example, a pretty extreme example on how somebody could surprise you, and then you just start spamming archers. The idea of archers is that you can attack your opponent without them attacking you back, which is always an advantage. And furthermore, the archers give you as archery, the tech gives you a defensive bonus, which gives extra strength when you are defending in forests. And this gives you an advantage too, because then you can just use your warriors as shields to shield your archers. I found stars here, for example, that's pretty good. And this I can use to just make my economy even bigger and, for example, get a giant or something. I chop a forest and then I get a giant in my city. And the idea, for example, I can siege the city, but then I would lose some archers. Therefore, I decide against it. But I still produced a lot of archers. And for example, now I have 5 archers. And these 5 archers are really strong for the early game because, well, they come at a pretty high cost. But on the other hand, you can use them to destroy your opponents that are near you and then just overrun the rest of your opponents too. For example, here I've managed to conquer a city. And from these archers you can then transition into mathematics and just a lot of giants, especially as Bardur. You can use mathematics to get a lot of giants, and giants are really strong units and they always give you an advantage in the early game. For example, turn 9 I've already 14 income while fighting with opponents and having a large military. Here you can see the advantages of this strategy. And from here on out you can play on as a normal tribe, but with a pretty big income. And this is pretty good. Yeah. So a third possibility that I would like to show you today is, for example, going for swordman. That is pretty good with Chinchi, for example. You use it mostly if you have opponents really nearby. For example, here you can clearly see it. And I will choose it because there are no two resources that are also the same in both of my villages, because mining costs more than organization, and with organization I would have, for example, been able to upgrade my city. Here I have a writer pretty early in my territory, which isn't really good, but I can't do really anything against it. And here, as you can see, I'm under pressure from both sides, but it isn't such a big problem, because the idea is that I quickly get my eco up and then just start printing swordmen. With 2 cities, you can already get pretty good results, and it is pretty good. Swordmen are a good strategy because they have 3 attack and 3 defense, and this is stronger compared to your other normal units. Here I leave the city open so I can train a unit in future, and here the swordman printing starts. Normally you use it if you have a bit more eco. Here it's a bit extreme, but as you can see, it can tank a lot of hits and still be pretty successful. And especially with the boost of stars you get from meeting your opponents, you can quickly gather a lot of military strength. Here I'm going to attack Imperials with my double swordman push, and here I use my forges to get also a pretty big income compared to before. Now I have 10 income. It's enough for 2 swordmen every turn. And if I have 2 swordmen every turn, then I can just have more and more and more swordmen, and that's always pretty good. Another positive thing about swordmen is that they are useful throughout the game, and there's almost never a time where you don't need them. With swordmans, you can use archers too. Archers are a pretty good. You can use archers and swordmen together pretty well, because the swordmen are pretty good in melee fights, and the archers are the ones that are going to support your melee troops. If you have, for example, some setbacks, the best things are that your swordmen are going to level up pretty quickly, because there are mostly a lot of units, and this can also be used to your advantage. Here I have already archery, and now I'm starting to go in with, for example, giants and archers and swordmen, and this results in a pretty strong early game attack. For example, already turn 10, I have 4 cities, a giant, archers, and many other things too. This gives you a pretty good setup for an early game attack, but one problem is that it is pretty consistent in its attack, but the response from the opponent can vary a lot. And if they use, for example, if they use defenders, you can get in trouble pretty quickly, and this is a big problem sometimes. If they manage to get defenders too quickly, then you might just get stuck. as you can see here, I've already a pretty good base for future expansion and overall just attack. And as you can see here, I have many units that are veterans or 2 out of 3 kills, and this shows you once again that it's pretty good for leveling up units. Here you can, for example, see that the archers are also pretty useful for supporting not only your swordmen but your giants too. And then you can just go on and play like a normal game. For example, you can use, for example, forges to create more giants. And yeah, I think this is it for my first tutorial. And if you think that there are other things I maybe should improve, please put it in the comments. That would be great. And thank you for your watch time, and have a nice day. Bye.